Of all the sounds in the world, it is the silence that follows a scream that is the most terrifying. It is a vacuum, a void where a specific, vital sound should be. For the town of Cedar Brook, Colorado, that silence began on a perfect, blue-skied Saturday. It was the day 7-year-old Lily Campbell vanished from her own backyard. The facts was simple, and that was the problem. Lily was playing in the fenced-in yard. Her mother, Sarah, was inside, making lemonade. The kitchen window was open. She heard the rhythmic thump-thump-thump of Lily's red rubber bowl. She heard her daughter singing a nonsense song. Sarah turned to get the sugar. It took 10 seconds. 15, at most. When she turned back, the thump-thump-thump had stopped. The singing had stopped. She called out. Silence. The backyard was empty. The red rubber ball lay perfectly still in the center of the lawn. The gate was closed, its heavy bolt securely fastened from the inside. Lily Wasconi. The ensuing hours were a blur of frantic horror. The police arrived. They were thorough. They scanned for footprints. They were only Lily's. They brought in dogs. The canine units picked up Lily's scent, followed it in a tight circle, and then stopped. At the center of the yard, the scent simply ended. It didn't trail off. Banish it. The lead detective, Miles Henderson, had seen everything. But this defied logic. A child does not evaporate from a locked, open space. The news spread like wildfire. The vanishing of Lily Campbell. The story was a siren call for the national media photogenico, a terrified family, a mystery that bent logic. Then came the theories. The abduction theory, a ninja-like kidnapper, the more exotic explanations, a portal, a rift in space-time, alien abduction, government conspiracy, the fairy tale theory that she'd been taken by the good folk. The town began to fray. The idyllic community became a place of locked doors and suspicious glances. The sound of a child's laughter now caused adults to flinch. Detective Henderson oversaw a massive investigation. They interviewed sex offenders. They dug into the parents' lives. They drained a pond. They used ground-penetrating radar. Nothing. The case grew cold because there were no leads to follow. It was a perfect, impenetrable circle of nothing. This is where our story truly begins, with the silence, and with the one man who refused to accept it. His name was Elias Thorne, a retired professor of folklore and anomalous phenomena. He saw the news reports and didn't see a true crime story. He saw, an hecho, a recurring motif. He arrived in Cedar Brook a month after the disappearance. It was a tall, gaunt man with white hair and calm, unsettling eyes. He didn't go to the police. He went to the library, the diner, the park. He listened. He asked different questions. He asked about the land itself, about local legends, about strange dreams. He learned the Campbell house was built on an old farm. He found a diary from the 1870s mentioning a quiet patch on the property where sheep had disappeared without a trace. He heard an elderly woman with dementia mumble about the door in the air and the ones who take the noisy children. A reclusive painter told him the light around Cedar Brook was wrong on certain days, that the world seemed to hold its breath. Thorne became convinced Lily had not been taken by a person, but by a place, a transient phenomenon. He got permission from the desperate parents to access the backyard. He brought custom-built instruments, an EMF meter, a sensitive barometer, a high-frequency microphone. 4 days, he sat watching his dials. Nothing. Then, one afternoon, it happened. The EMF meter spiked with an unnatural sine wave. The pressure dropped infinitesimally. The microphone picked up a sound, a single, pure, harmonic tone, like a crystal glass. In that second, Thorne felt a profound stillness. The world held its breath. He had found it. A door. But it was gone in an instant. He needed to understand its trigger. He correlated his data with weather patterns from the day Lily vanished. He built an algorithm. It predicted the phenomenon would recur in 3 days. At 4:17 p.m., he went to the Campbells. He laid out his evidence. I believe Lily stumbled through a temporary aperture, a door that wasn't supposed to be there. I think she fell, and I believe that door is going to open again. It was insane, but it was the only theory that explained the impossible. What do we do? Sarah whispered. We be there, Thorne said. When it opens, we go through. The day arrived. The sky was, once again, a perfect blue. Thorne, Sarah, and David stood in the backyard. The air was thick with tension. For 17 p.m., nothing. Then, at 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 23 seconds, it happened. The air in the center of the lawn began to shimmer. The EMF meter screamed. The harmonic tone returned, vibrating their bones. A patch of reality, the size of a door, was unraveling. Beyond it was a gray, formless fog, shot through with pulsing threads of light. It won't last long. Torne, Yele. Driven by a year of agony, Sarah ran forward and stepped through. She was gone. Thorne and David looked at each other. There was no choice. They ran towards the distortion and lurched across the threshold. The sensation was of being unmade and reassembled. The sound cut off, replaced by a deep, profound silence. They were in a place. There was no sky, no horizon, just an endless, twilight gloom. The air was cool and still. The only light came from faint, pulsing threads. It was a landscape of lost things. The gray ground was littered with wrong objects, a bicycle with square wheels, a book with blank pages. And then they heard it. Faint and far away. A child's voice, singing a lilting, tuneless melody about a dragon and a peanut butter sandwich. Lily! Sarah's scream echoed strangely. They ran, stumbling over the bizarre debris. They found her sitting on a large, gray rock. She was thinner, paler, but whole. And she was still singing. She looked up. Mommy, Daddy, I knew you'd come. I was waiting. It's very quiet here. I got bored. She had been in this featureless void for a year, and to her, it seemed like an afternoon. She had no concept of time. As Sarah embraced her, sobbing, Thorne looked for a way back. The aperture was one way. He saw the threads of light converged in the distance, forming a brighter knot, a nexus. We have to go that way, he said. They walked. Lily, nestled in her father's arms, seemed unaffected. Look, Daddy, a spoon with a hole in it. As they neared the nexus, the air hummed. The threads throbbed like arteries. At the center was a fluctuation, a weak spot where they could see fleeting glimpses of their own world. It's not open, Thorne said. We need to force it. He had nothing to rip a hole in reality, but he looked at Lily, at the pure life in her, the antithesis of this dead place. Lily, he said gently, the song you were singing, can you sing it again? As loud as you can. Lily began to sing. The threads of light flickered. The gray fog recoiled from the sound, from the chaotic noise of a child's imagination. The harmonic tones sounded again, a faint counterpoint. The fluctuation began to swirl. The images of their world became clearer. Louder, Thorne yelled. Sing with her. Make a noise. They shouted and sang the ridiculous song at the top of their lungs. A shockwave of life, of disorder. The aperture shuddered, with a sound like shattering glass. A doorway of blinding white light opened. Go! Now! David, clutching Lily, went first, pulling Sarah. They fell back onto the green grass of their own backyard. The sunset was beautiful. The air smelled of cut grass. It was here. Thorne was the last through. He turned and saw the gray place recoiling, the aperture sealing itself. It would be back, but now, they knew. They collapsed on the lawn, weeping, holding each other. Lily was Beck. The story they told was a carefully edited Versana hidden root cellar, shock, amnesia. It was flimsy, but Detective Henderson had his missing girl back. Alive, he closed the case. The news of Lily's return was a global sensation, but the truth remained a secret held by 4 people. The town of Cedarbrook slowly healed. The curse was lifted. The silence was broken. Lily recovered fully, though she sometimes hummed that strange little song. Elias Dorn went home, his theories vindicated, and David and Sarah Campbell never looked at their backyard the same way again. They knew the world was stranger and more wonderful than they had imagined. They had learned that some silences are not empty, but full, and that sometimes the only way to find what is lost is to be brave enough to step through the door and loud enough to sing your way back home.